Should the terminally ill be allowed to end their own lives? If ever there was a subject which, do you know what, it's not one of those issues that I've ever really been hugely animated about. So kind of either way, you know, once in a while the debate comes up and it sort of divides up in a similar way to the debate about abortion and for similar reasons. But based on what we're hearing now, so they published yesterday the bill, which could mean somebody could take their own lives, kill themselves in 3 weeks. This was Kim Leadbeater, the Labour MP, her, will require 2 independent doctors to determine whether the person satisfies the criteria to take their own life. MPs have now seen that detail and they can debate on this. There'll be a vote in a few weeks' time whether they agree with the proposals. If enough of them vote yes, the bill goes to the committee stage and on it goes. Further debates, of course, both in the House of Commons and the House of Lords will ensue. It could actually take years for this to sort of get anywhere. The bill is called the Terminally Ill Adults End of Life Bill, would make it legal for over 18s who are terminally ill to to be given assistance to end their own life. But there are some requirements in this. Let me just quickly run over what the requirements will be. So you must be resident in, this is England and Wales, by the way, registered with a GP for the last 12 months. They must have the mental capacity to make the choice and be deemed to have expressed a clear, settled and informed wish, free of coercion and free of any kind of pressure, which is certainly one of the areas of concern. They must be expected to die within 6 months. So this is all quite grim talking about this, I get that. They must also make 2 separate declarations, witnessed and signed, about their wish to die. 2 independent doctors must be satisfied the person's eligibility, and there must be at least 7 days between the doctor's assessments. And a High Court judge, finally, must hear from at least one of the doctors and could also question the dying person or anyone else they consider appropriate. There must be a further 14 days after the judge has made the ruling. Now, of course, the judge will, one assumes, be sitting, presiding based on the law as it's been laid out. So there may be things that a judge doesn't actually have to consider. You'd think, well, surely, I mean, but a judge may well say, yes, based on the current law, if this goes through, these are the considerations, but there's other things I don't have to. You know, have you been a burden on your family? I don't think that's even in the bill. If that is, you know, somebody's belief, I don't know how the judgments will work in that respect. But it's a, look, you might have been there yourself. I have not been in a situation where a relative has been in such a place, clinically, medically, etc., where this would ever have kind of come up. But I am aware there are lots of people who find themselves like this. I'm also told that palliative care these days is so good that it's almost, not completely without exception, but you know, we're kind of in that place where palliative care just works so darn well that a bill like this wouldn't be needed, is the argument. So forgive me for sitting slightly on the fence on this one, but I'm open to all arguments and persuasions on where this should go. We will speak to 2 voices later in the hour. One is a doctor who works in palliative care and with older people as well. So we'll look at all sides of this one. But should the terminally ill be allowed to take their own lives? And you might have been in this position, you know, as when a family member, a parent or a grandparent has said, look, you know, if I could, I would do something to end this because this is miserable. But just being a bit miserable won't be enough to satisfy this bill if it goes through. Let's get a word from Claire Muldoon, the broadcaster, on this. I know, Claire, good afternoon to you. I know you feel very strongly about this because we have touched on this one before. Just before we get to your thoughts on what you think about the bill as it's been published so far, and where it's likely to go. Let's get a word from the Tory leader, Kemi Badenoch, because she spoke to Mike Graham a few weeks back now, but this bill was being discussed. And here's what the leader of the Conservative Party had to say.
Assisted dying is a very, very sensitive subject. Let's see what the bill is. I have been someone who, because of what I saw in my family, support the principle of assisted dying, but I do not trust the system to deliver it properly. I've been telling everyone the system is broken. If we can't get social care working properly, if we haven't been able to get the NHS properly reformed, how are we going to deal with assisted dying? I don't think this is something that we should rush through. And Keir Starmer, I hear, wants to rush this through Parliament, and that's something I'll be opposing. This needs to be very carefully thought through.
So she agrees with the principle, Claire, but doesn't believe the system can deliver this in any good way. I don't even think you agree with the principle here, Claire.
No, I don't. And thanks for, for assuming that, because you said that you were on the fence. Well, I'm quite clearly off the fence in this matter. I think the 58-page document that's been released to the MPs with only a 5-hour window to debate isn't enough. I don't think there's any safeguards there that Leadbeater has put in this to protect the vulnerable in society. We only have to look at our neighbours in Canada, in the Netherlands, and you will see that 4% of deaths in Canada is through medically assisted suicide. And I think that's just shocking.
4%? That's a massive... I know 4%. Canada's not the biggest populated country in the world. 4%
of deaths is for assisted death. And I just think the parameters here, we've seen it with the abortion laws. We will see it with these laws as well. They will get looser and looser and looser within the realms of the law. And the people that the law is there to protect. They just won't be protected, Ian.
If you look at the, what is being proposed, as you probably heard me read it out, Claire.
Yeah.
Certainly on paper, it looks as if there's a lot of safeguards in place to stop this.
There's only 3 over the age of
abused.
18, with full mental capacity, and to express a clear, settled, and informed wish to die. Well, there might be coercion in this.
There's doctors have got to be satisfied. A judge has to look at it as well.
Oh, Ian, come on. There's 2 doctors, 2 independent doctors. What the risk of that is the fact that people could actually go and shop for doctors that will give them what they want to hear. That happens all over the place now. It happens with plastic surgery. It happens with the trans issue. It happens with abortion, and it will happen with this. We already have assisted dying in this country, and it's called palliative care. And the palliative care really has to be upped to scratch in order to deal with this. No one would like to see anyone that they loved or cared for in desperate measures in pain. No one wants that, because we're human. We want the best for people.
But if you are in pain, are you not allowed to say, look, I don't want this anymore. I've got 6 months left. I don't want to live for 6 months like this. It's
you shouldn't be in pain, though, Ian. We've got 13,000 people bed blocking the NHS. We have to... What kind of society are we when the only route for people is death? The only route for people is to get out of what they're in. And I'm talking about families here, I'm talking about divorce, I'm talking about assisted dying, I'm talking about abortion. Why is it in a society of today, of our intelligence, of our experience, why are we so down on each other? Why do we have such a cheap aspect and a cheap amount to place on life, relationships and society? It doesn't bode well. It makes everyone intrinsically selfish, and moving on from that, one step away from that, is a really selfish society. And I don't want to be a part of that. I would rather people cared for each other the way they should. I would rather people went into caring professions where they were to do their job properly, with service, with great aplomb, and they would not feel bad. Most medics, Ian, don't even want this bill to go through. And that's the reality of it as well. Their voices need to be heard. And within this 38-page document, 5 hours of debate, it's crucial, absolutely crucial, that people get on board with this and know that it's going to be the thin edge of the wedge of another depletion in society. We're not animals.
Well, it's interesting. As I said at the beginning, this could in fact go on for years anyway. In terms of the toing and the froing, we will watch and see how this pans out. Certainly initially over the coming weeks, and we're going to come back to that debate in around about 15 minutes' time as well. Let's move on to this story, very serious story, Claire. Archbishop of Canterbury under pressure to quit over his handling of the child abuse sex scandal. Let's listen to Justin Welby. This is him speaking in 2019 about this scandal.
I genuinely had no idea that there was anything as horrific as this going on. And the kind of story you showed on the clip, I mean, if I'd known that I would have been very active, but I had no suspicions at all.
The Macon Review says this was one of many incorrect assertions.
Well, there it is. No suspicions at all. This is interesting, Claire, because, look, lots of people appeared to have lots of suspicions when Mr Welby didn't, but the pressure is now on. Bishop of Newcastle and others, 7,000 petition signatures, including clergy, claims that his position is now untenable.
Yeah, and I think it is. I really do. I don't think that anyone who is a member of the Church of England could take instruction, moral instruction, from a man who has enabled, through his complicit, taciturn response to this. I think he did know. That you interviewed him in 2019. He became Archbishop of Canterbury in 2013. We're now in 2024. No justice can be brought until he is removed, actually. That's the other further irony in this. And he sits on boards that, give millions of pounds worth of money to safeguarding charities, to safeguarding children and women and men in the Church of England. How could he safeguard when, surely the base point of safeguarding is to stop any form of paedophilia or stop any form of abuse. You might think so. But in this case, it's quite clear it hasn't. I'm surprised he wanted to wait until next year, until he was due to retire. I really think he's doing his flock a disservice, and he really should be defrocked and moved away from the Church of England. He really is not fit for purpose.
Yeah, I mean, and when you read the details... Go on.
I'm saying that as a practicing Catholic, and the Catholic Church has had historic, heinous, disgusting abuse cases. I mean, no one's minimising anything, and I'm not saying tit for tat. Well, I'm just saying from a benchmark, it's appalling.
Agreed. Over 130 victims of this monster called John Smythe, and the level of abuse, and I wouldn't even go into the details on air, to be honest. It's so awful and horrible and nasty and evil, all of those things.
Evil. It's evil personified.
Completely, and clearly Welby's eye was off the ball on this one, and surely walking the plank is the most dignified and only response Mr Welby can have at this stage.
Well, interestingly, I just binge-watched Wolf Hall, the first series, yesterday, and it tells you a lot about the structure and the formation of the Church of England. And, if this has been happening historically. There have been bad leaders in everything, in politics and religion, and in service, in schools, all over. And it's just very, very interesting to see the politics of it and people's pride that often gets in the way.
Yeah. Spot on. Claire, stay with us. Claire Muldoon, the broadcaster, with us on the programme. Back to that initial comment as well, the initial question, I should say. Should the terminally ill be allowed to end their own lives? And come at this from you might come at it from a religious perspective. There's obviously a huge spiritual component within the debate, I suppose, is the way to phrase it. You might just have your own experience, and you might have a view on this that is sort of seesawed, as mine does a little bit, from one to the other, because I kind of get it and then don't get it, and then I think, well, it's up to individuals, but then I can also see the pitfalls, as Claire pointed out, some of those. It certainly isn't straightforward. I mean, I think assisted dying, although it does exist legally in many other parts of the world, it's still not what you would call commonplace in the Western world. Do you want that over here? Should that be on the books, made official, that you can have assistance in dying if you are terminally ill? All the boxes have been ticked. Everything has been legally satisfied. You're not being coerced. Someone's not trying to, get the contents of your will because you're worth a few quid and they want to speed up the process. None of that happening. If you're satisfied with all of that, is that okay? But of course, someone will know it's nothing to do with that. It's actually just to do with the sort of playing God scenario. We don't do that as humans. That's not part and parcel of the gig.